I find this story with Chateau Pavie 2003 incredibly entertaining, I have to say.
As usual, I went to Bordeaux to taste the wines en primeur, and I came across this wine that just didn't seem like wine to me. It seemed more like port, and really did taste that it had been from shriveled grapes. Just didn't have any grace. Not real sort of juice or character. And I wrote a pretty damning note.
Both Robert Parker and Jancis were reviewing the 2003 vintage en primeur. Jancis came out with her first tasting notes before Robert Parker. And in her review, she said this was a very rich, overblown example of a Saint-Emilion. Robert Parker's review came out, which I think, it gave it a bracketed score of 96 to 100, which eventually settled at 96. Still an extraordinary wine, though, but a very richer, more robust expression. When you consider 2003 was the hottest vintage that France had ever experienced.
Next thing I knew, I checked my emails, and I got one from a fellow London-based wine writer called Michael Schuster. He sent me an email saying, "I think what Parker said about you is terrible." I didn't know what he was talking about.
And so he came, back at Jancis, just saying, this is crazy. This is one of the greatest terroirs in the world. And, I've tasted this wine and it is nothing like that.
The transatlantic feud, and lots of European wine writers came to my defense, and doubtless lots of American wine writers came to Parker's defense. And it became a very controversial wine. And then a few years later, we happened to be in the same hotel and met over breakfast. And of course, big hugs and, and I remember Parker saying to me, "That Pavie thing, I overreacted." So we kissed and made up.
I think blind tasting is the most overrated tool and the most underrated tool. It continues to inform me and humble me, and it continues to humble the top of the food chain in the wine industry.
You want me to blind taste this? Wine is red. First word I can think of is sexual. This is a powerful wine, thick-skinned. There's a little bit of alcohol. There's some noticeable fruit. It's a wine that's got some age, for sure, but a wine that hasn't fully integrated at the same time, alluding to the fact that it might have some more life left in it. A darker fruit profile, kind of herbal, minty notes underneath. I feel like there's some new wood on the wine, and for a thick-skinned grape, that really kind of takes me into Bordeaux variety. So cab-dominated, most likely. I should probably taste it before I start making opinions. Yeah, this is a big wine. I feel like it's from a ripe vintage, and I feel like it's from a fairly warm place. While this, to me, has a Bordeaux-style character, I feel like this is a more New World expression of a cab-dominated blend. The age is tricky because it feels young, and just looking at it and smelling it, I know it's got some age at the same time because I'm getting those secondary flavors. If this were Bordeaux, I'd want there to be probably less alcohol, more gravelly, lead pencil type characteristics. Gorgeous, seamless tannin. I mean, that really, really elegant wine. Vintage is really tough. I'd say this is Napa Valley Cabernet dominated. I would say like late 80s or early 90s, maybe even younger. Ripe vintage, I'll say 1990, Rutherford, Napa Cab. Oh, Pavie, well, that makes sense. I don't feel bad about that call at all. 14% alcohol. Pavie this is one of the warmest vintages for Bordeaux. So for me to call ripe vintage Napa is I think, a fair indication of how this wine drinks. Fun wine to blind taste, for sure. Drinks like Napa.